the crucifixion of Jesus, that wasn't the real story. Is that what you said earlier?
Yes, it's false.
It's false. So who was crucified on the cross? And also in the story, there were two, I don't if you remember the two thieves that were on either side of him.
Right.
What was that then if the story that we know as religious people isn't true? Then how does the story go for real?
Okay, so according to the story, this is what the best way of trying to explain this is like, you know, if a movie is made, right? The movie has a storyline, it has characters, and different people watch the movie. And then when they relay the story of the movie, people will give you their version or interpretation. They will leave things out. Some will say this happened. Someone else will be like, maybe you just lost attention for the few minutes that the part that the other person say is saying happened. So the when we teach and try to bring people out of the spell of religion, we have to use the story. So when we teach, we will say, according to the story, even within the story itself, we can use the story to debunk and prove that it doesn't make sense. So, according to the story, Jesus was able to transfigure himself and transfigure other people. How do you know this? Because they tell you that he was able to feed the multitude by multiplying loaves of bread and causing fish to commit suicide and just fall into the net for him to feed people, right? So we know that he's able to transfigure. And when the if you go back and read the story and see when like the Pharisees and all these people came to arrest him, if you read it again carefully, they didn't even know who he was. And they say that they had to identify him by Judas going to him to kiss him on the cheek and all of this kind of stuff. And when they went to get him, it tells you they all fell on the ground. So there was a scuffle within that story, and then basically Jesus transfigured Judas to look like him. And so they took Judas, and it was Judas that was crucified on the cross. On closer inspection, when you start to look at the story of Judas, they would tell you in the book that he went away by himself and hung himself, found a rope, went to a tree, and hung himself. Now, somebody's obviously relaying this incident, just like the Genesis story where someone is telling you about what God was doing and what God did. But in the spell of religion, your mind doesn't see and think, well, who was it that was watching him go and get a rope? Because obviously he didn't write it out. He didn't write, I'm getting a rope now. I found a tree. I'm putting a rope on my neck and now I'm hanging myself. He didn't write it. So who was watching it? Or is it hearsay? And even if it's hearsay, where did that story come from? The fact of that in that time, crucifixion by the cross was just a normal thing. It was just like having the electric chair in America today. So it was a normal form of crucifixion, and the two people, as you say, they were just people that were guilty of crimes, and they were also to be executed that day. So yes, according to the stories, that is what took place, and according to the real evidence, no such thing took place because there isn't a shred of evidence. They tried, even the whole point of when Mary then came to the garden and said that she was looking for her master. Words like master are left untranslated because master is Rabboni, right? So he was a rabbi. And to be a rabbi in the Jewish traditions to teach in the temples, only you have to be married, number one, to be able to be a rabbi. Number two, Mary was looking for her husband because she said, I'm looking for my master, right? The fact that she was oiling his feet and all of that previously, only your wife can touch your body and do those things according to, the rabbi traditions. He actually turned around and said to her, "Why do you look for the living amongst the dead?" And he said that I have not yet ascended. And he told her a lie. He told her to go and tell the people that he was, because he was in a disguise, because now he was hiding and he was dressed as a gardener. That's why they said she came and she saw a gardener, because he was now undercover, to bring it to today's language. He had to hide, because obviously if they found out that he was still alive, they would go after him. And the fact that the transfiguration of Judas only last for a few days, the people that were working with Jesus, according to the story, they were included in it, and so they were the ones that had to get his body and get rid of it. And that's why they took it from when he was hung, and they threw it over and dismantled his body, so they would not be able to find out what had taken place. They then met with Jesus and smuggled him out of the country by way of the Jesuits, and they went through France, and he ended up in Egypt, and as the story goes. So there is a lot missing, because many of the books that tell you other accounts, they don't put them in the 66 books that you find in the Bible. So you have to read, Mary had a book, you have to read the book of Enoch, you have to read other books that go into the details of what actually took place as it was recorded. But what we're saying is, all those stories in terms of the people are taken from real people in Egypt, and then people like Josephus Piso, they then took those stories and wrote plays to become what you're calling the New Testament. And his family actually were involved in playing the characters of the play. So all one has to do is do some research, and you will find out that it's actually a concocted story. Most of the characters, your Moses, your Abraham, none of these people existed. They're all taken from ancient Egypt. Moses is Thutmose. Yeah. When you're saying Abraham, you're saying Abra and Ham from Kemet. You can literally find every story in the New Testament and what they call the Old Testament, which is really the Torah. You can find all those stories in ancient Egypt. The flood of Noah is Sennacherib in ancient Egypt. The crucifixion that they tell you about, if you read Psalms 22, it's the crucifixion of David. The immaculate, so-called immaculate conception is from Elizabeth and John the Baptist in the Old Testament, that's been borrowed over to the New Testament as Mary, the Virgin Mary. She wasn't a virgin in the first place, because when you start to research what a virgin is, she had children, etc., etc. So I know I've gone wide, but it's just to put things into perspective. And this is why we keep saying that, oh, have tweets back. We have to get the spell of religion out of us. And we use the spell as a part of the antidote until you come out, and then we can give you actual facts based on Wusabat and give you the right knowledge, the right wisdom. And then we go into obviously the master secrets and the hereafter doctrine.